Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly mind-bending, the foreword to George Vithoulkas' textbook, The Science of Homoeopathy. Now, what makes this specific text so incredibly fascinating is who actually wrote it. It wasn't penned by a traditional homeopathic doctor, but by William A. Tiller, a professor of materials science and engineering at Stanford University. Tiller uses radical, multidimensional physics to explain how homeopathy might actually work on a fundamental level. So my goal today is to act as your guide. We're going to take these dense physical concepts and translate them into simple, digestible pieces that absolutely anyone can understand.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The shift to subtle energies. 2. Tiller's hierarchy of energy. 3. Two frames of reference. 4. The semiconductor industry analogy. And 5. The future of medical tech.
Section 1. The shift to subtle energies.
To really grasp this shift, Tiller draws a very clear line between allopathic, or conventional medicine, and homeopathic medicine. Think of conventional medicine kind of like a mechanic working on a car. It deals primarily with the physical chemistry and the tangible physical structure of the body. If a part is broken, it tries to fix or replace that specific physical part. Homeopathic medicine, on the other hand, approaches that chemistry completely indirectly. Instead, it deals directly with a hierarchy of what Tiller calls subtle energies. These are invisible forces that he argues actually underlie our physical bodies. Because homeopathy works with these energies, which, by the way, can be heavily influenced by your mental and emotional state, Tiller notes it currently has to be classed as a subjective medicine.
Moving right along to Section 2, Tiller's hierarchy of energy.
Now, what's really interesting here is the actual reaction equation Tiller lays out for us. Look closely at the flow of it. On the top line, it starts with what standard science knows very well: function linking to structure, which links to chemistry. But then the equation takes a radical turn. It dives deeper, linking physical space and time to the mind, then to the spirit, and ultimately to the divine. Tiller is making a bold, massive scientific argument here. He's saying that humans are multidimensional beings living in a multidimensional universe, and our medicine absolutely must reflect that entire complex chain. Let's walk down this multidimensional ladder step by step together. Starting at the very top, the absolute foundation of it all, we begin with the divine. Tiller states that the divine expands into the spirit. Now, for the spirit to actually experience things, it has the mind embedded right within it. Tiller cleverly calls the mind the builder. To give itself a learning experience, the mind actually builds the physical universe through two overlapping energetic frames. From these subtle energy frames springs actual, tangible substance. That substance takes on structural forms, which then ultimately give us our biological, bodily functions.
The absolutely crucial point here is how this chain dictates human health, and it's all anchored around one word: homeostasis, or balance. Because we are inextricably linked from the physical level all the way up to the divine, a disturbance literally anywhere in this energy chain causes ripples to flow in both directions. Tiller firmly asserts that you cannot achieve complete, perfect balance at the physical level without balance at all the underlying energetic and spiritual levels. If your subtle energies are out of whack, true physical balance is impossible. And because of that, disease must eventually materialize in the physical body.
All right, Section 3. Two frames of reference. In other words, Tiller splits the universe into two interpenetrating, overlapping spaces. On the one hand, we have the positive space-time frame, which corresponds to the conventional allopathic medicine we're all used to. But intertwined right there with it is the negative space-time frame, which corresponds to homeopathic medicine. Let's break down the unique, completely mind-bending physics of each of these frames.
So, the positive space/time frame. This is the universe we can easily see, touch, and measure every single day. Tiller explains that everyday physical substance manifests right here. Its properties are super familiar to us. It's electrical in nature. It has positive mass, meaning it has weight and takes up space. It travels slower than the speed of light, and it gives rise to the gravitational force that literally keeps our feet on the ground. This is the strictly physical realm prescribed to and utilized by standard allopathic medicine. Now, contrast that with the negative space/time frame, which Tiller refers to as etheric substance. The physics here are totally inverted and highly theoretical. This invisible frame is magnetic in nature, possesses negative mass, travels faster than the speed of light, and actually gives rise to a levitational force, rather than gravity. I know, it defies our everyday logic, but Tiller postulates that this specific, highly refined, faster-than-light etheric substance is exactly what is being prescribed and utilized in homeopathic remedies.
Section 4. The semiconductor industry analogy.
Tiller writes, and I quote,
The more organized and coherent we become at the physical level, the more apparent is our disorganization, incoherence, and imbalance at more subtle levels. Basically, what he's saying is that as humans mentally and spiritually evolve, we become more highly integrated, complex beings, and because of this evolution, our internal communication networks become wildly sensitive. Even microscopic imbalances in our subtle, negative space-time energy flow cause that energy to scatter. And it's that scattering effect that we ultimately detect, feel, and diagnose as a physical disease.
To brilliantly illustrate this exact point, Tiller compares human evolution to the maturation of the semiconductor industry. Trace this timeline with me for a second. Back in the 1950s, we started with the simple early transistor. Then we advanced to integrated circuits. Today, we work with large-scale integration, packing millions of tiny circuits onto a single microscopic silicon chip. Tiller points out that in the early days, rudimentary, low-quality silicon worked perfectly fine for a basic transistor. But if you took that exact same crude, flawed silicon and tried to use it in today's highly demanding, hyper-complex microchips, it would fail miserably.
The key takeaway here is the lesson of coherence. Tiller explains that the greater the degree of coherence in any system, the more catastrophic the departures from perfection become. Apply this back to us humans. Just like a modern microchip is vastly more demanding than an early transistor, a highly evolved human is so refined that our ability to sense departures from perfection is incredibly heightened. Therefore, tiny, subtle energetic flaws, things we wouldn't have even noticed centuries ago, now cause massive, catastrophic failures to the function of our biological systems.
Finally, Section 5, the future of medical tech. So, you might be wondering, how on earth do we measure these tiny, energetic flaws? Well, Tiller addresses the elephant in the room. In the past, we simply haven't had adequate scientific instrumentation to detect these subtle, faster-than-light levels of energy. But that is rapidly changing. Tiller points out that we are currently seeing early developments in this exact area. We're beginning to develop electrical instrumentation designed to monitor physiological responses at a network of specific points on the skin. According to Tiller, readings at these specific skin points correlate incredibly well with subtle imbalances, not just in the physical body, but at the next invisible energetic level.
But his vision goes way further than that. Tiller emphasizes this incredible prediction. Devices are being developed that will directly reveal the interaction of mental intention and healing. Just let that sink in for a moment, the idea of a machine measuring how a thought actually heals a body. He firmly believes that future medicine is going to advance by utilizing successively finer and finer energies. We will eventually develop a much wider range of devices capable of monitoring and even correcting imbalances at all key multidimensional levels of the human being.
For this sci-fi sounding future to actually arrive, though, Tiller makes a summary plea to the powerful, conventional allopathic medical establishment. He argues that as a rigorous science of subtle energies inevitably develops, the scientific community absolutely must create an unprejudiced environment. We have to make room for paradigm-shifting changes in our understanding and ensure that adequate, fair testing of these new homeopathic procedures is allowed and encouraged, rather than instantly discriminated against.
Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative thought. Will mainstream medicine ever fully embrace the technology to measure the interaction of mental intention and healing? Professor Tiller certainly hopes so. He views George Vithoulkas' textbook as a strong, scientific foundation for an exciting revolution in therapeutics. It absolutely makes you want to turn the page and see exactly what laws of healing Vithoulkas outlines next. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this helped unpack the wildly fascinating physics behind the science of homeopathy.